There is someone, somewhere, who felt your presence yesterday in a way that shook them to their core. Not because you spoke, not because you touched them, but because something within them stirred when they thought of you. And that stirring did not bring comfort. It brought pain. You must understand something profound about human connection. When two souls recognize each other on a deep psychological level, the experience is rarely calm. It is disruptive. It exposes what has been buried. It awakens what has been sleeping. And yesterday, your energy, your memory, your absence, your silence, pressed against a wound they have been trying not to feel. The pain they carry is not simply about you. You are the mirror, and mirrors are dangerous. They reflect truths we are not ready to confront. When they felt you strongly, they were not just feeling attraction or longing. They were feeling the parts of themselves they have rejected, the vulnerability, the desire, the fear of abandonment, the fear of being seen. You may not even know the power you hold in their inner world, but in their psyche, you have become a symbol of possibility, of intimacy, of transformation. And transformation always begins with discomfort. Yesterday, something reminded them of you, a song, a silence, a memory. And in that moment, their carefully built emotional defenses weakened. They felt exposed. They felt the depth of their attachment. And instead of relief, they felt pain. Because to care deeply is to risk deeply. When someone feels you strongly, it is not always sweetness. Sometimes it is the ache of distance, the regret of words unsaid, the fear that they may lose something that feels rare. And when the heart recognizes rarity, it trembles. This pain does not mean you have done something wrong. It means the connection is alive. It means you have touched something real. But real connections demand growth. They demand honesty. They demand courage. Right now, they are wrestling with themselves, with their pride, with their fears, with the question, do I reach out or do I protect myself? The pain is the tension between desire and defense. And here is the deeper truth. When someone is in pain because they felt you strongly, it is often because you represent a doorway to emotional depth, to change, to a version of themselves that is more open, more vulnerable, more alive. But walking through that doorway means letting go of old patterns. It means risking rejection. It means surrendering control. And that is terrifying. So if you sense a shift, a silence, or a heaviness, do not rush to assume the worst. Sometimes the soul retreats not because it does not care, but because it cares too much. The strongest connections do not fade quietly. They echo, they disturb, they challenge. And yesterday you echoed in their heart louder than they expected. Whether this becomes a reunion or distance depends not on fate alone, but on awareness. Pain can either close the heart or open it. And somewhere tonight they are still thinking of you. Not lightly, not casually, but with the weight of someone who realizes that what they feel is not ordinary. And that realization hurts. Deep connections have a way of reaching into places within us that we did not even realize were still alive. When we encounter someone who resonates with us on a profound psychological level, something ancient stirs beneath the surface of our carefully managed personality. It is as if a hidden door inside the psyche opens, allowing long-forgotten emotions to rise into awareness. These emotions are not always gentle. Often they are intense, contradictory, and overwhelming because they carry the weight of our unfinished inner stories. Many of us move through life believing we have outgrown certain wounds. We tell ourselves that past heartbreak no longer affects us, that childhood insecurities have been resolved, that we are independent and emotionally stable. Yet a deep connection can dismantle this illusion within moments. A single conversation, a shared silence, or even a meaningful glance can awaken feelings of longing, fear, joy, and vulnerability all at once. These reactions may seem disproportionate to the situation, but they are rarely about the present moment alone. They are echoes of earlier experiences stored within the unconscious. When someone touches us deeply, they often activate parts of ourselves that have been suppressed for the sake of survival. The fear of abandonment, the desire to be chosen, the anxiety of not being enough, these emotions lie dormant until a connection feels significant enough to threaten our emotional equilibrium. What makes the experience so powerful is that it feels both new and strangely familiar. The soul recognizes something, and that recognition bypasses logic. This awakening can be unsettling because it disrupts the narrative we have built about who we are. We may see ourselves as self-contained and rational, yet in the presence of a deep connection, we feel exposed and uncertain. The buried emotions rise not to harm us, but to seek acknowledgement. They ask to be seen, understood, and integrated rather than avoided. In this way, deep connections serve as catalysts for inner confrontation. They illuminate what we have hidden from ourselves. The intensity we feel is not merely about another person. It is about meeting the unhealed fragments within us. Through this process, we are invited to grow beyond our defenses and to approach our own emotional depths with honesty. What awakens may be uncomfortable, but it is also profoundly transformative, revealing the true landscape of our inner world. When you enter someone's life in a meaningful way, you often become more than just a person to them. You become a reflection. Human beings understand themselves largely through relationship. We discover who we are, not in isolation, but in the way others respond to us, challenge us, and see us. When a connection is deep, this reflective function intensifies. The other person begins to see parts of themselves in you, qualities they admire, traits they fear, desires they have long suppressed. In this sense, you act as a psychological mirror. A mirror does not create what it reflects. It simply reveals what is already there. If someone feels inspired in your presence, it may be because you embody courage they secretly wish to claim. If they feel insecure around you, it may be because you highlight doubts they have tried to ignore. The discomfort or admiration they experience is not caused solely by your behavior. It arises from the resonance between your qualities and their inner world. This mirroring effect can be deeply unsettling. Most people construct a version of themselves they feel comfortable presenting to the world. They hide vulnerabilities, deny certain desires, and suppress aspects that seem unacceptable. But when someone comes along who unconsciously reflects these hidden layers, the illusion of control begins to crack. Suddenly, emotions surface that seem disproportionate to the interaction. The intensity is not about the present exchange, it is about the revelation taking place beneath it. You may notice that their reactions to you are complex and sometimes contradictory. They might feel drawn to you, yet also defensive. They might admire you while simultaneously criticizing you. These mixed responses often signal that you are reflecting something powerful within them. The mirror forces them to confront both their light and their shadow. It shows them who they are and who they could become. To be a psychological mirror is not always comfortable. It means that your presence alone can stir introspection and inner conflict in another person. Yet this dynamic also holds transformative potential. When someone dares to look honestly at what you reflect, they gain insight into themselves. The mirror becomes a tool for growth rather than a source of fear. In this process, connection turns into self-discovery, and the relationship becomes a pathway to deeper awareness. Strong emotional energy has the power to unsettle the structures we rely on to feel stable. Most people build their lives around routines, beliefs, and emotional defenses that help them maintain a sense of control. We learn how to regulate our feelings, how to appear composed, how to keep certain desires or fears quietly contained beneath the surface. But when an intense emotional connection enters our lives, it can disturb this carefully constructed balance in ways we do not anticipate. Emotional energy is not passive. It moves, it presses, it demands acknowledgement. When two people share a powerful resonance, the experience can feel electrifying, almost overwhelming. It bypasses logic and goes straight to the deeper layers of the psyche. Suddenly, thoughts become preoccupied, the body feels restless, and the mind replays moments again and again. This disruption is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that something meaningful has been activated. What makes strong emotional energy so disruptive is that it challenges our sense of predictability. We prefer to believe that we are rational and self-contained, yet intense feelings reveal how deeply relational we truly are. A single interaction can shift our mood for days. A moment of silence from someone important can create anxiety that feels disproportionate. These reactions expose how much we care and how vulnerable we actually are. In many cases, disruption occurs because strong emotional energy touches unresolved parts of us. It may awaken old fears of rejection or abandonment. It may stir longing that we have tried to suppress in order to protect ourselves. The energy acts like a current running through buried memories and unprocessed experiences, lighting them up all at once. This can feel chaotic, even frightening, because it removes the illusion that we are fully in control of our inner world. Yet disruption also carries potential. When emotional energy shakes us, it breaks patterns that have become rigid. It forces us to confront what truly matters rather than what merely feels safe. The discomfort we experience is often the first stage of growth. It pushes us to examine our boundaries, our desires, and our emotional maturity. While the intensity may feel destabilizing, it can ultimately expand our capacity to feel deeply and to relate authentically. In this way, disruption becomes not destruction, but transformation in motion. Pain is rarely random when it comes to human connection. When someone occupies a meaningful place in our inner world, the emotions tied to them become layered and intense. The deeper the attachment, the more vulnerable we are to feeling its absence, its uncertainty, or its instability. Pain in this context is not merely suffering. It is evidence that something within us has bonded, invested, and opened itself beyond indifference. Attachment forms quietly. It grows through shared moments, emotional exchanges, subtle recognition, and the feeling of being understood. Over time, another person becomes integrated into our psychological landscape. Their presence brings comfort, their words carry weight, and their reactions influence our emotional state. When this connection is threatened through distance, silence, or misunderstanding, the resulting pain reflects how deeply intertwined our inner worlds have become. If there were no attachment, there would be no ache. Indifference does not wound. Casual interactions do not leave lasting impressions on the heart. It is depth that creates vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to care, we accept the risk that caring may hurt. The pain signals that the bond has moved beyond the surface and into a more profound layer of emotional significance. This discomfort often reveals truths we might otherwise ignore. It shows us who truly matters. It exposes the value we assign to certain relationships. Sometimes we only realize the depth of our feelings when confronted with the possibility of losing them. The ache clarifies what the mind may have tried to minimize. Pain also signals that we have stepped beyond emotional self-protection. To attach deeply requires trust and openness. It means allowing someone to see parts of us that are not guarded. When that openness feels shaken, the nervous system responds strongly. The distress is not weakness, it is the cost of genuine connection. At times, people attempt to suppress this pain, convincing themselves it is unnecessary or irrational. Yet suppressing it often distances them from understanding their own emotional depth. When acknowledged honestly, pain becomes informative rather than destructive. It highlights the areas where love, longing, and significance reside. In recognizing this, we begin to see pain not only as suffering, but as proof that we have dared to care in a meaningful way. Distance between two people is not always created by lack of feeling. Often it is born from an internal battle that has nothing to do with the visible interaction and everything to do with what is happening beneath the surface. Inner conflict can quietly build walls where affection once flowed freely. It is not indifference that creates this space, but tension within the heart and mind of the one who feels too much and does not know how to manage it. When a connection becomes meaningful, it activates opposing forces inside a person. One part longs to move closer, to express openly, to risk vulnerability. Another part fears exposure, rejection, or loss of control. These opposing impulses do not cancel each other out, they collide. The result is hesitation, silence, or emotional withdrawal. From the outside, it may appear as distance. From the inside, it feels like a struggle for emotional survival. Inner conflict often stems from past experiences that shaped how someone understands intimacy. If vulnerability once led to pain, the psyche learns to protect itself. Even when a new connection feels safe and genuine, old memories can resurface as warnings. The mind may whisper caution, while the heart insists on closeness. This push and pull generates anxiety, and to reduce that anxiety, a person may unconsciously step back. Distance, then, becomes a coping mechanism. It provides temporary relief from the pressure of deciding whether to open up or shut down. By creating space, the individual avoids confronting the depth of their feelings. Yet this space can also intensify longing, making the inner conflict even more pronounced. The person may replay conversations, question their own reactions, and oscillate between reaching out and retreating further. What makes this dynamic painful is that the connection itself is often not the problem. The struggle lies within unresolved fears and unmet needs. The individual may care deeply but lack the clarity or emotional security to express that care consistently. Their withdrawal is not necessarily a rejection of the other person. It is an attempt to stabilize themselves. Understanding this helps reframe distance not as absence of feeling, but as evidence of emotional complexity. Inner conflict can delay closeness, but it also signals that something meaningful is at stake. When faced honestly, this conflict has the potential to transform fear into growth and distance into conscious connection rather than silent separation. Transformation rarely arrives wrapped in comfort. It does not announce itself gently or wait until we feel fully prepared. Instead, it often enters through disruption, through moments that unsettle our privilege. Discomfort is the signal that something within us is being challenged, stretched beyond its familiar limits. While we naturally seek stability and ease, growth requires friction. Without tension, there is no movement. When we experience emotional discomfort, it usually means that an old pattern is no longer sufficient. Perhaps we are being asked to communicate more honestly than before, to confront fears we have avoided, or to release attachments that once defined us. The unease we feel is the mind's resistance to change and the heart's awareness that change is necessary. These two forces clash, creating anxiety, confusion, or even temporary sadness. Discomfort exposes the gap between who we are and who we are becoming. It reveals the protective mechanisms we have relied on, avoidance, control, emotional distance, and shows us where they limit our growth. When a relationship or situation triggers strong emotions, it is often because it touches the edge of our current identity. To move forward, we must let parts of that identity dissolve. This dissolution is rarely painless. Many people misinterpret discomfort as a warning to retreat. They assume that if something feels unsettling, it must be wrong. Yet, transformation demands that we stay present with what feels unfamiliar. The discomfort is not necessarily danger, it is expansion. Just as muscles ache when they grow stronger, the psyche strains when it stretches beyond old boundaries. In moments of emotional intensity, we are confronted with truths about ourselves. We may recognize our fear of vulnerability, our need for validation, or our reluctance to trust. These realizations can feel destabilizing because they challenge the story we tell ourselves. But in acknowledging them, we gain awareness. Awareness becomes the foundation for conscious change. True transformation is not about becoming someone entirely different. It is about integrating what was once hidden or denied. Discomfort marks the threshold of this integration. It signals that we are standing at the edge of a deeper understanding of ourselves. If we endure the tension rather than escape it, we emerge with greater resilience, clarity, and emotional depth. What once felt threatening becomes the catalyst for becoming more whole. And so, if you feel the tension, the ache, the unspoken weight between you and this person, do not rush to escape it. Do not numb it, and do not immediately label it as loss. What you are witnessing is something far more profound, the stirring of two inner worlds adjusting to a truth they can no longer ignore. When someone feels you deeply, it changes them. And when you sense their pain, it is an invitation to awareness, not guilt. You are not responsible for another's wounds, but you may be the catalyst that brings them into the light. That is not cruelty, that is awakening. Every meaningful connection carries a moment of reckoning, a point where comfort ends and honesty begins. Whether this path leads to union or separation, it will not leave either of you unchanged. The pain, the distance, the intensity, these are signs that something real has been touched. So stand firm in your authenticity. Let them face what your presence has stirred within them. If the connection is meant to grow, it will do so through courage and clarity, not fear. And if it fades, it will still have served its purpose, revealing hidden depths, awakening buried emotions, and reminding both of you that to feel deeply is to be alive. In the end, what matters is not whether they retreat or return. What matters is that the encounter has transformed the silence into awareness. And once awareness has begun, neither heart can ever return to what it was before.